And welcome to the Hall Preezy universe. I am King HP, otherwise known as Father, and today we're going to cover Wandavision episode 6. Spoiler alert, we gotta drop this. Right now, we are in the heart of Wandavision, episode 6. So I can't tell you if you haven't seen it. Please leave now if it's going to ruin your viewing experience in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, if you want to get some notes, quotes, find out if anything is what you think it is, or just get some good information, then stay tuned. So let's go ahead and break this thing down. So WandaVision starts off with
question what you've done. The game can try to play us. Don't let it stop the fun. Some days it's all confusion. Easy come and easy go. What is...
and you see a very Malcolm in the Middle-ish intro. And there's nothing super crazy. It's just little things to keep track of. One, Wanda's using her powers with Vision in front of the children. Now, Vision was the guy. Wanda, now maybe because they're family, whatever, but they're using their powers in front of the kids. And Pietro is himself. Like in the credits, it says Wanda Maximoff, it says Vision, right? But it says Pietro Maximoff as himself. Right? And it's like, that's a weird thing because Agnes is also in the opening credits. And where Agnes is important. She's holding the kids so it'll display, and it's like, here's Tommy and Billy and Agnes. Like, it's kind of weird, right? Because Agnes is not a family member. But go back to the review. Watch my last review. We talked about that a little bit, where Agnes said, "It's Auntie Agnes," right? So she's just sliding in. So she's in there now, right? So we get past that. Just keep those little things in mind. As himself, I just thought that was really weird, being that, of course, you're yourself. Like, who else would you be, right? Don't trust Pietro. I'm not even gonna worry about putting him on a watch list. So we get the Halloween edition, and coincidentally, today's a holiday for some. It's Valentine's Day. So let me also say happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for tuning in. If this episode drops today, then it's on Valentine's Day. If not, just know I recorded it on Valentine's Day. But let's keep moving. It's Halloween, and this is Marvel at its best. They made it Halloween, and guess what they do? They start giving you the comic book accurate costumes to all these people, right? So we see Wanda, and Pietro's like, what are you supposed to be, right? And that's a good question, because in the comics, yeah, it looks great, yeah, right? Think about how old these comics come from, the 60s and 70s. But it's 2021. So what is you wearing, right? I'm a Sokovian fortune teller. No argument here, right? I don't know what they wear. But Vision comes down, and he's looking like classic Vision. And Marvel is taking stabs at it, right? They know, and this is how great their storytelling is. So they put that in there to where, hey, let me guess what you are. You're a booger, right? You're a booger, and they throw little jokes in there where Vision's telling her, she has a thing for Mexican wrestling ensembles, right? Little light humor, but don't let this line slip, right? There's a line in there that Vision throws to her when he comes downstairs, and he tells her there was nothing else in the closet to wear. Like, literally, that's this. I was forced into it, right? So this is again showing you the control that Wanda has. But they slid it in there with all them jokes. That Vision had no choice on what he had to wear, right? So they get in a little disagreement because guess what? Vision is neighborhood watch. Remember how he was? Vision's got neighborhood watch. So Wanda, wanted Vision to be around for the kids' first Halloween, even though they're 5. But you know how time is sped up, right? Last episode they had the candles 1 through 5, right? So with that being said, Vision is about to go with Wanda. I have to do this. I'm sorry, I should have told you. Wanda's kind of questioning, and guess who steps in to make a deal? Pietro. Hey, relax, right? Hey, relax. I got the XY chromosome. I could be a father figure, right? But Pietro, we've just seen he's very immature, and it's interesting to see the comparisons. Go back and watch the X-Men films. He's like dialed up from that, right? And he's nothing like the Pietro Maximoff we knew. So I think that also throws Wanda off, and we kind of see it because throughout this episode, she's going to constantly question things. So he makes this deal, and Wanda's cool with it. Vision's cool with it. Vision goes on his neighborhood watch. Now, one thing I want you to realize, this episode, throughout the episode, okay, this episode is about deals. Deals, compromise, and answers. And it's almost always kicked off, led through, or responded by with Pietro. Almost every instance. He's either got to answer for something, or he's going to make a deal for something. Like, he has the compromising, so he has a compromise, he has the solution. It's like he was already ahead of the game, but we're going to get into that. Okay, and now we see Sword, right? And they got the drone that Wanda threw at them, right? And it's still glowing. So they're taking their evidence, right? And we see the Fantastic Three. But in reality, we see Agent Wu, we see Monica, and we see Darcy come in, and they're pretty hot about what had happened. You know, specifically Monica, being that she didn't get the 411 at all from Director Hayward, and he was trying to explain, like, now we know what we're dealing with, right? But they get into this argument, and it gets out of hand really quick. You know, he is very against these super-powered individuals. He even tells Monica, "You're always advocating for these super-powered beings." Yeah, I know your background with Carol Danvers, right? And you know, she comes back. You know, she feels a little hurt with what he said. So she's like, you know, he was a fool. You know, the 5 years I was gone, that doesn't give you the right to be a fool, because the reason they're going back and forth, right, is Monica doesn't feel like taking Wanda out would have been a significant solution. And what I mean by a significant solution is that's going to remedy the problem. The problem, as Monica points out, is we don't know what that would have done. We don't know if that would have released everyone from this hex. We don't know. So we can't just do things like that. And you know, at the end of the day, I guess the snap, you see how it's affected people's mind state. Now, this is where I want you to really rewatch this episode, right? This is Marvel laying groundwork for what's coming. Let's take our hands out the script for a minute, right? We know behind the scenes that Marvel has acquired 20th Century Fox. That's been happening. We know the mutants are coming. We know the X-Men will eventually get there. How does Marvel set this up? Well, they're going to sprinkle. They're going to sprinkle, and they're going to story tell their way into it. They're not just going to do like remember when Fox came, it was the X-Men movie, right? And they have the ability and a layout, a platform, all this surface area to put things here, put a few things here, put a little bit there, until you've met characters and you now understand their existence and how they work and how they are integrated into society. Once you have that understanding, I guarantee you they will give you X-Men. It will not just be like, hey, 2023 summer X-Men, and we haven't seen no mutants, or, you know, it's not going to be like that. Marvel is sprinkling this in. And what am I getting at? Why am I even talking about this? Well, point out the sentiment that Director Hayward is giving to Monica, right? Towards superpowered individuals. And he even has a line about, you know, you that left still have the ability to be optimistic, right? Because he was like, we had to, basically he's trying to get at, we had to grind. Those people that were left behind, it was bad. Trying to put food on the table. I mean, imagine that you go to work and your supervisor's gone, but the guys who got the keys to get into your job are gone. You know, remember, it was half the people in the universe vanished, right? Without question, all random. So, you know, maybe your supervisor's there or not. But the point is, superpower individuals have put a taste in people's mouth. Now, remember how in Endgame, we saw the Hulk and Ant-Man. They had this great scene. And they wanted to portray the Avengers as heroes. And they did that. They did that very well. This series is showing you behind, like, outside the Avengers, we are now seeing how the world, and maybe it's not the entire world, right? But people in power, because Director Hayward, acting director of SWORD, right? Sentient Weapon Observation Response Department, he is not feeling superpowered individuals. Maybe because he lost things. We're going to find out his backstory, I'm sure, right? Or enough of it to understand his mentality. But we're going to move forward a little bit. He gets to the point where he tells Monica,
maybe it's a good thing you weren't here when your mother died. Because clearly you don't have the stomach for this job. Get her off my base. Now. All of them.
All right, come on, let's go.
Right, because they're going back and forth, and Darcy made a little comment about the guy who almost got murdered by his own murder squad, right? And I think that was the start of it. But honestly, he was like, "Listen, it's a good thing you weren't here when your mother died, because you don't have the stomach for this, right?" And then he kicks them all off this case. Like, he is like, "Get them out of here, get her out of here, all of them," right? About Agent Wu, Darcy, and Monica. So he is. He's always going to stay on this watch list until we find out what his motives are. But I'm going to come back to that in this very one.
He was looking for a reason to sideline us. He's up to something.
Let's go, everybody in.
Why didn't anyone tell me the plan?
Sudden sneak attack, bam, right? You got Agent Wu throwing punches. Monica jumps in the fray, and they take the guards out. They're about to go in the hex. Remember, they don't see this outcome from Director Hayward as a logical one. So they really feel like what they're gonna do is gonna be a more constructive outcome. And one thing to note, Monica kicks somebody when they're down, knocks them out, right? But she's looking like, could these be the origin story of Monica Rambeau? I think we're really getting to that so they can unveil a lot more come Captain Marvel 2. But right now, in the beginning of WandaVision, this is where we're really starting to see it, right? So they're trick-or-treating, and there's kids everywhere, and you got Pietro and Wanda. And they're walking in the streets, and Pietro, unleash hell, demon spawn, right? He's like, yo, go out there and just roll crazy. That's a line that you got to keep in mind. And the only reason I'm going to say that is this, right? There is a comic reference for these two children being the spawns of Mephisto. Vision didn't take in liquid. And I think when you look back in the episode, Vision said, "I can't eat food." I'm not going to get too scientific, so just give me a second, though. Vision didn't take in food. Remember the gum? It jacked him up, right? So it's very highly likely that those children have nothing to do with Vision. I mean, they don't have any Vision's powers. They have the same powers as Pietro and Wanda. So, I'm not going to call Maury on this one.
You are not.
I'm just not. But I think that line is alluding to, again, something bigger at play here. And I also think that Pietro is not Pietro. He is it is Pietro, and it's not just the multiverse Pietro. I think that something was done to pull the multiverses, right? That Wanda did. I think Wanda did it, maybe with the amplified abilities now. But there is a person masquerading as Pietro. Like, that's what I think this is. He used this knowing he can get to Wanda, and this is his way in. Because remember, when Pietro showed up, the alarms went off, right? The alarms literally at SWORD went off. So he came into that barrier that night, at that moment, right? So he should know nothing of prior to that, right? Because he wasn't tuned in watching, unless he was somebody else and they were watching. So, things to make you say, So, after we asked that question, right, Wanda asked a question like, do you remember that time? And you're testing me, right? And that's what I was saying earlier about the compromise, the quick answers. Like, he always has a way to throw Wanda off, keep him off the trail, keep him off the scent. Even if he thinks she's like right on it, he'll divert something somewhere else, right? So Wanda straight up asked him, "Why do you look different?" Right? And he acknowledges it. He's like, "Yeah, I know, but I think what it is him doing that is like making Wanda feel at ease, but at the same time, Wanda can't bring back the dead per se the way you would just think, like, oh yeah, she could just conjure up a person. I think there's things that she needs. Like, she had Vision's body, right? And we know that because she stole it from the Sword headquarters. Now, I think in the later episodes we're gonna find out more details of how that happened. But for right now, I mean, we know she had a body in her possession of the individual, and then she was able to, assumingly, bring that back. So I think with Pietro, because later in the episode he even says, "You were calling to me." He said, "I got shot like a chump in the street," right? Which is wild to say because her brother got shot in the street. You know that. So it's like in your universe, that's what happened to you, supposedly, right? But I don't think that's the case. I think that's like a knock on your brother. Like, we'll get to that when we get there. So we get our first commercial for this episode, or we get our commercial for this episode, and it's a very interesting one. It's a very 90s it's commercial claymation, and it's this kid on an island, or this man, or whatever, but it's a kid, and this shark comes up to him, and the kid is stuck on this island. He can't go anywhere. He's stuck, and he was like, "You know how I got big, and you know how I was snacking on Yo Magic, right? Yo Magic, YO hyphen MAGIC, Yo Magic." Like your magic, right? And I want people to understand this, right? The guy is alone. They're vulnerable. He's approached by this great white shark, apparently a predator, essentially, though. Don't matter what the animal, as long as it was a predator. It was a predator, right? I snacked on your magic, I think, is key because when you're talking about a predator going to this vulnerable person, right? The kid is never able to get that magic open. He ends up dying on the island. I think this is all in relation to Wanda, right? Where Wanda is the person on this island. She is trapped. She feels alone. She later tells Pietro in front of the little movie theater when they're having a little sit down, but she felt alone. I mean, this is like a sea of loneliness and stuff. So here comes this predator. Now, we don't know who this person is, right? In the commercial, it kind of shows it, but we don't know, like, as far as being an analogy, what little pieces and words go where to fit the bill, right? We don't know who the predator is, but I really do feel like this is Marvel telling you cinematically this is what's going on, right? And this episode, I thought the commercial was blatantly obvious to it. So then we get a conversation between Wanda and Pietro, right? And again, it's this back and forth. Pietro always has an answer. He always has something slick to say. If he can make it slick and slide it back, it'll just like throw Wanda off. Like, for instance, she's like, "Oh, well, you're such a bad influence on the kid because the things he's saying and the things he's doing. Like, we saw him early in the episode. He's popping cans of soda, got the kids doing, just no home training." So he says, "I'm just here to do my part. I come unexpectedly," which he did, "create tension with you and the brother-in-law," right? Which he's working on, "and stir up trouble with the Rugrats. Ultimately, give you grief." That's what you wanted, isn't it? He literally says these things to Wanda. So, being that he says this to Wanda, being that he said that, that in all my alarms, it's like someone entered my sword perimeters. Because now I'm like, why would you say all that? Like, you have a part to play. Now, granted, we all know this is Wandavision's show. Boom, boom, boom. But there's only a couple people who are seeming to be aware of the show being a show. Agnes, right? She was like, "You want me to take it back from the top?" Right? Actually, Herb, right? Herb says to Wanda, "Want me to change something?" In this episode. Giving that credit to Wanda, like, I understand that you're the one. Like, you're the one that, this show goes through. So they understand that. Wanda even asks, "What happened to your accent? What happened to yours?" And this is where we get the line, "I got shot like a chump in the street," right? And we know her brother got shot. So to call him a chump. Now, I think it's worded in a way where it's like, he's talking about himself, but I really think he's talking about her brother. He just told you, "I'm here to bring grief," and blah, 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 blah. So it's like your brother was a chump. He got shot in the street. A man with super speed gets shot, right? I mean, just think about that. So Wanda's brother comes to town. He brought the wrong face. This is the line we hear from Darcy. Because everybody's waiting to see what the explanation is. And Marvel, if you're listening, man, please give it to us sooner than later. Ultimately, you're going to tell your story. But with him bringing this, right, Monica had asked, who is that? She sees him on a monitor at the facility. They're about to sneak into the hex. They're looking for little things. She gets her little call. My guy's going to be here in an hour. Now, who could it be? Fandom. We all hoping for Reed Richards, right? We are all hoping for Reed Richards. I mean, that would be crazy. But that's not the only person it could be. I mean, we might see Beast. Remember, Beast is super smart. Beast Beast has so many degrees, right? And that could be another way of trying to slowly introduce these X-Men. I mean, we just see right here, right? They're about to go in. Darcy's like, hey, wait, hold on. You can't go in. Why not? Why we can't go in, right? And Darcy breaks a little bombshell. Whoa, Director Hayward has your blood work, right? And he tells her that Monica is changing, right? That the hex is changing Monica. So with that being said, it could be X-Men. It could be Sue Richards. Well, no, it's a dude, so that's ruled out. So it could be, somebody related to Pym, not related per se, but someone who works with Hank Pym, right? And the only reason I say that is because he's gone into the quantum realm too, right? So when they say aerospace engineer, I'm not ruling him out either, because the quantum realm, if you can get into the quantum realm, could you get into this hex, right? So I'm not ruling him or anybody that could be a major participant in the next Ant-Man movie, which we already know is already slated, right, for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So they're tracking when they're in this office, right? And Darcy's going through, she's looking at all this cool stuff, right? And they're seeing the stuff that Director Hayward was not showing to people, and they're tracking Vision, right? And they're using his decaying vibranium signature to track him. So my question is, why are you not tracking Wanda, right? Is there a way to track Wanda? Probably. I mean, he's got a track on every single person in the town, right? And Agent Wu was like, well, now he should have a sense of their well-being, right? Well, they're tracking Vision. Sentient weapon. We've moved on from those manned missions, and we've gotten into robotics, AI, nanotech. These are things said by Agent Hayward, right? And I want to bring that up because it's so important to realize Vision is key. And you know what? I'm going to do an episode on that. It's going to be called Vision is Key. And what is he key to? It's going to be a theory. It's going to be a theory thing. So I'll just say that for that, and we'll move forward, because there's a lot there, right? So anyway, they notice the people at the edge of town are stiff. Now I got to question this, because the way they're phrasing that is like the people towards the edge of the town, they're not moving, right? It's almost like they're saying that to say, here's Wanda, here are these people, right, way far away, and it's like Wanda's only controlling those around her per se, and if you're further and further out, right, you're just kind of like, until we get to you, like Wanda moves further in position, then you're just like a suspended animation. So Vision flies up, he surveys everything in the town, he can see all the lights, but there's one set of lights that draws his attention. Agnes, right? Of course, right? And she's got her brake lights on, and she's at Ellis Avenue, right? That's an important street, because later Wanda tells the kids, don't go past like Ellis Avenue. They say it in unison. Don't go past Ellis Avenue. And that's like the end of the hex. There's the road, you see some grass, and then the hex ends, right? So anyway, Vision flies down, he talks to Agnes. I found this peculiar, and this is why I don't trust Agnes. This is why she's going to stay on the watch list. We're not going to take Agnes off the watch list. Earlier we talked about comic book accurate costumes. Agnes is dressed as a witch. I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but we had already mentioned the comic reference to Agatha Harkness, right? If you take the AG off of Agatha, and then you take the last three letters or last four, Ness, right? Harkness, you get Agnes, right? And she's playing this role. But anyway, let's move forward. They have a little conversation. Now, notice now, no one else could talk to Vision. When Vision was at the edge of town, he was like, excuse me, are these your children? And they were... they were completely stiff, right? They didn't move. They was on my man's time right here, right? They was just like him. So Agnes can talk, but she's talking as if she's under, she's like, I was just looking for some sort of street. Now, Vision asks, he's like, she's like, I got lost in the town that you grew up in. Yo, she got mad quiet. I mean, you can hear the pin drop. You can hear the mind stone fall out of Vision's head, right? It was that quiet. And she doesn't answer that question. That's something she does not answer. Then Vision gives her the doop, right? And then, bam. And what she started doing, Agnes, is why I don't trust you, watch list. She's on permanent watch list because what happens, right? She starts bumping the gums and she starts doing what she did before when she was with Herb. Giving out information to Vision, making it seem like maybe it is an accident, right? Maybe she has his best intention in mind. I don't think so. So anyway, what she does is she's like, "Oh, Vision, you're an Avenger. You're Vision. You're here to help us." And Vision's just eating up. Yes, I am Vision. I am here to help. What's an Avenger? Like she said, "Why don't you know? Am I dead?" He said, "Oh, why would you think that?" And then we get the line that we've been seeing in the promos and all that. Been seeing it.
Am I dead?
No. Why would you think that?
Because you are.
Because I'm what?
Dead.
She said it 4 times. Dad, like she Vision he ends up touching her back. He was like, I'm gonna fix this. So she goes off. She does it. She's driving, but she's so far from Wanda like everyone else. But she's driving. She's not even just. We watch Vision watch a lady. She was in suspended animation. She had the tear. She was hanging up her stuff on a clothesline for her decoration. I'm assuming it's her husband. He in the back, putting the pumpkin down, picking it back up, putting it back down. Suspended animation. But this woman done drove. Just remember those little things that she has abilities apparently that no one else has because everyone else is just stuck. And she's not. So I just thought that was really weird. But remember, I think we as the viewer know that. I think Marvel as the company wants us to see that, but yet understand that Vision is not completely seeing that, right? Like he didn't really, he didn't. Agnes is fine, right? So anyway, Pietro's. They're back in Westview, and Pietro is giving Wanda the 3rd degree, right? He was like, "How did you do it? How did you hide all those kids? Where did you keep the families? I mean, you kept the families together. You gave them some better jobs." And Wanda's like, "What is going on?" And when he asked her how she did all of it, he starts to talk like one of them undercover cops trying to make a bust. I mean, that's honest. Like he was like, "Hey, I'm not your husband. You can trust me. You can talk to me," right? So Wanda starts telling him, except Wanda doesn't know. She's like, "I don't know." And I think this is where I really starting to show you there's someone pulling the strings, and they're pulling hard because Wanda doesn't know how she got to this. So I really feel like we're about to see how she got the body. I really feel like we're about to, see all the behind the scenes things on Wanda's end. How did she come to this, right? And why she doesn't want to let it go. Because if you got put into this or a deal was made that you came into this, why not let it go, right? But you're going to start to see that thing. And she's, boom, dead Quicksilver, right? Now, the bullets don't match up to where Quicksilver in MCU got shot, but it's enough to kind of give us the impression. Now, I don't know if that was on purpose or not, right? Because this is where Marvel makes you. It seems like everything else, like Vision was bust to the white meat, and it was accurate. It was really, really accurate. The shots that are on Pietro are not do not line up to all the shots he took in Age of Ultron. So is that another key that he is not the same person? Even though we visually see that, he is not him, and it's someone masquerading. But we see the dead Pietro, right? He's dead, and Wanda sees it. And he's like, what's wrong? Everything all right? Yes. So that, I don't know who he is. He could be, I mean, the number one thing everyone wants to say is Mephisto. I think we would really love another big bad, but it could be a guy named Nightmare, who's a very similar character to Mephisto. So just keep these things in mind, and it may be someone else entirely. Maybe it is Quicksilver, and they threw us for the loop. And Dottie, who we haven't seen in many episodes, right? We ain't seen Dottie since Color. Dottie got her hand cut, turned color. She was in a quick thing with the episode when Wanda was going into labor, and the power went out, and she had to ask the dress that made me look fat. I haven't really seen much of Dottie, so we don't know where she's at. So Darcy breaks through that firewall, and she basically wants to shoot the info to Agent Wu, right? And when she puts in James, they let us see the names, and they all come up James. There's a James Gad, James Alexander, James Suckler, right? The first two names I said, they work for SWORD because it has their email address below it, right? So they're both at sword.gov, right? And then the last person is FBI.gov. And I think, we don't get shown anything by accident, so we're going to have to research those names, see if there's any tie-ins. And being that they're SWORD, are those names going to come up? I was hoping to see Franklin, right? But that didn't pop up, so we don't know where Agent Franklin still is. He hasn't come back. Now they go back to the Vision, and he's coming through. He's breaking through the barrier. SWORD is there. They're ready to. They got this, right? Because remember, they're tracking Vision. They're not tracking Wanda. They're tracking Vision. Like when Wanda came through the hex, it was burr, burr, burr. We have a breach. They all running. They were watching the dot move, and they're like, all right, let's go. Getting ripped apart, essentially, back to the state that he was, which is scary because now it's. Can Pietro come out? Based on what we saw, it's not looking likely. Because Vision was being pulled apart back to the hex and still coming out dying, right? And he gets a message out, the people of Westview need your help. And these people hear that. Darcy hears it too. She comes running because she was watching. She was like, because she and Director Hayward's computer, secret, laptop in his little room office, she was watching too. So she comes out and then she's like, help him, right? They lock her up. They cuff her right to the vehicle. You're not supposed to be here. For what? Now, as this is happening, we're watching the two, it zooms back to the two boys, and you got Tommy out here just enjoying his powers. He's moving, right? And all of a sudden now Wiccan gets his. Boom. And it's very ironic how these are happening in heightened stress, because that's how mutants, we've always been told, got their powers. In times of heightened stress, in their early adolescence, puberty time frame, maybe in their teenage years, that's where their powers. So remember, they're 10, and their powers are. So, and one thing about that is, I don't think their power was the when they aged up. I remember, go back to last. I think that's something to do with Agnes being there and her spraying the. So I do think, because when they were gonna do it a third time, Agnes was there, and then their mom stopped them. I totally believe this is done with some sort of connection to Agnes. So now they're seeing their powers, though, what they can do. Billy stops them, and then they run to their mom, which is funny because Tommy don't run at the same speed he was just running at, but that's neither here nor there. They tell their mom, boom, hey, something's going on. Vision, Wanda's like, hey, focus. Man, when Wanda gets message, Wiccan says, I think he's dying. Wanda gets ready to, you see what's happening. You could tell the urgency. And here comes Pietro with the line, hey, relax, sis. It's not like your dead husband can die twice. Boom, right? Sends him through the hay, right? Stacks of hay. How did he know Vision was dead? if you watch Age of Ultron, Vision didn't die in that movie. Quicksilver did. When Quicksilver comes to town, there's a breach as he's at the door ringing the doorbell. Like it's like he got brought into the hex at that moment. So he wasn't around for Endgame, Infinity War, the blip. So this is why that to me that was like them trying to show me this is not who you think it is, and it's very interesting as we go into next week. Once she puts Pietro through all that stuff. She puts her powers and she starts pushing that hex out. And when I mean out, I'm talking about Sword was looking, they were like, oh snap, they take off running. And it's too late. The hex moves in, boom, boom, boom. Every time it passes anything, it turns it. You know, there's a car lot, turns into a used car lot based on the time period. It catches up to some Sword agents, turns them into clowns. And turns their Sword vehicles into clown cars. It catches Vision, and guess what? As it goes over Vision is reanimated. Now, one thing I do want you guys to understand, please rewatch the episode. As Vision was dying, the Mind Stone stayed intact the entire time. It gets to a point where we stop seeing the Mind Stone as he falls into the grass. Does that mean the Mind Stone just go? It was yellow. It was intact. It was going. And when he falls in the grass, you can't see that part of his head anymore. So can the Mind Stone, even though Vision was dying, can the Mind Stone or a stone, we'll just say a stone, exist outside of the hex? Remember, Thanos reduced them to atoms. So that doesn't mean they can't be brought back together, right? It's just going to take a lot to do it. And I would think if anyone could do it, a person who has the ability to destroy a stone would have the ability to create one. All right, so I say that like that. Now, it's sad because Darcy, they ain't uncuffed Darcy. They left Darcy, right? And she was just, and you see her get hit with, but you don't see the outcome of what she becomes. So we have to tune in this week because that's going to be very interesting. I'm wondering, does Vision get a chance to catch up to Darcy? Does he remember what just happened, that he escaped the hex and was dying? Does he remember who he saw, right? Like, these are going to be interesting questions as we go forward. Monica and Agent Wu, they're on their way to the aerospace engineer, and they see this hex expanding, and they're foot on gas. And so is Director Hayward. And he almost gets caught with the hex. He does not. But his whole team is wiped. He gets on radio. Does anyone hear me? It is silent. And we watch that team get wiped. So this disdain for superpowered individuals is about to be on 10. Now you got to start wondering, what are they going to do? This is getting out of hand, right? Monica told them earlier that in episode 4, when they were going back and forth, that it's she's not a terrorist because she kept it contained. It's quarantined. But now she's pushing, and you know how far it's going out. So it's going to be some interesting things. But definitely be on the lookout. I'm going to go do a Vision is the Key blog. I think that is warranted because the amount of attention that Vision is getting, what they were doing with his body, what that may bring up, what that may do for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Avengers and mutants alike. We got to tune in to see. But thank you for tuning in. That's really all we have to talk about this week. Make sure you tune in next week. Make sure if you have not, click the like and subscribe, turn the notifications bell on, so this way anytime I drop content, boom, you get the notification, and we're right here.